We are joined now by Shai Bazak, former diplomat and former media advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Professor Kobi Michael, a senior researcher at the INSS and Misgav Institutes. Thank you both for joining us today. Kobi, I'd like to turn to you now. There's a big question at hand, and that is Hamas's role right now. We know they have been stealing the humanitarian aid and using some for terror purposes, feeding their own men. But we also saw widespread reporting, and even Gazans on the ground told ILTV that Hamas was selling the stolen aid on a so-called black market for exuberant prices. So how can we guarantee this time around that Hamas won't continue stealing the aid that the IDF are now allowing to enter the Strip? And is this even something that we can monitor and control?
We cannot guarantee it at all. I think that we are providing Hamas now with humanitarian aid. We feed Hamas, we strengthen Hamas, and eventually Hamas is able to reach to very significant achievements without even negotiating. By refusing to negotiate and by running the starvation campaign with the cooperation on the one hand of the international media, the UN of course, and some other humanitarian aid organizations, and the undoing of the Israeli government on the other hand, actually this is the ultimate recipe for the success of Hamas. And eventually we are losing in each day any leverage that we thought that we have in our hands in order to pressure Hamas to make a further step towards the ceasefire agreement and the releasing of the hostages. And I think that what we see now in the Gaza Strip is something which is very embarrassing from the Israeli point of view. And I think that it will not take us even a half step forward with regard to any agreement with Hamas, but on the contrary, I think that it takes us a step forward towards the entire or full occupation of the Gaza Strip and the establishment of a temporary military administration, which is the only valid option in our hands to dismantle Hamas and to assure that Hamas will not remain an effective sovereign power in the Gaza Strip. And this is something that we should have done long before. Now we will reach to this option where we are in the worst position with regard to the international community, and after paying a very heavy prices in any aspect that we can think about.
So, Kobi, I want to just touch on something that you said, which is really the question, the big question of the day after. We're learning a lot from this aid operation with the IDF. We're maybe learning a bit more about the control or lack of control of Hamas within the Gaza Strip. Does this change anything when it comes to the discussion of what will happen the day after? What do you foresee?
I think that the day after should be very clear, and I think that Israel should have declared long ago that we have no territorial demands with regard to the Gaza Strip. We do not intend to control the people of the Gaza Strip. We want to assure three things. The first one is that Hamas is not there anymore, which means that we dismantled Hamas as a governmental and military organized form or entity. Secondly, that the Gaza Strip will not become once again a severe security threat on Israel, which means to change the entire security climate and environment of the Gaza Strip, and to assure that we will have the freedom of action in order to prevent any trial of reconstitution of Hamas or any other Palestinian faction that will try to reconstitute itself. Now, I think that Israel should have declared that the military administration is a temporary military administration for 2 to 3 years that will assure that Hamas will not be enabled to reconstitute itself, that will facilitate the conditions for the establishment of a new civilian governance that will be supported by a regional mission force and the beginning of the reconstruction process. And based on a gradual process, this military administration will be dismantled zone after zone where the new civilian governance will take responsibility over the entire Gaza Strip and the population. And this should have been coordinated in this way or another with the Palestinian Authority as well. It doesn't mean that the current Palestinian Authority will return to the Gaza Strip, but the Palestinian Authority will be in the picture and will go through a very significant reform process. And once the Palestinian Authority will be there, maybe they will be able to return to control the Gaza Strip. But unfortunately, we didn't do that. We didn't choose any strategic path and stick to this strategic path. And we actually danced a sort of Yemen dancing, okay? 2 steps forward and 1 step backward, and eventually we found ourselves in this mess.
Interesting. And I have to touch on the hostages here because we have not mentioned them. Talks are stalled, that we know. And after weeks of optimistic comments by President Trump regarding the progress in Doha, he's now saying things like, quote, Hamas wants to die, and he's certain that their unwillingness to come to a deal will be their downfall. So, Kobi, I want to ask you before we wrap up, do you think that the recent efforts that have to do with the aid distribution could perhaps affect these hostage negotiations when it comes to the future of these negotiations and maybe, possibly even coming to a deal?
I really doubt it. I was doubting the option that Hamas will release all the hostages from the first beginning. Due to 2 major reasons. The first one, this is the ultimate insurance policy that they have in their hands, and that they do not believe that even they will get guarantees from the Americans, from the international community, Israel will not resume the war, or Israel will not resume the attacks against Hamas. And they believe that as long as they hold in their captivity some hostages, then they have a sort of a leverage on Israel, or a sort of an insurance policy. And the second reason is that we know that Hamas does not hold all the hostages, not all the alive hostages and not all the dead hostages. Just a week ago, I think it was last week, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad noticed or declared that they lost control with one of the hostages, a live hostage, okay? Which means that even if Hamas will try to comply and to bring back or to release hostages, it doesn't mean that the other factions that hold the hostages will be willing to cooperate with Hamas. And secondly, we have to remember that even hostages, dead hostages that were captured by Hamas and were buried in the Gaza Strip 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I'm not sure that they are still with us alive. I mean, the Hamas militants that buried the hostages, and the entire topography of the Gaza Strip has been changed, and I'm not sure that they will be able even to find the graves in order to take out the bodies of the dead hostages. So I doubted before, and I doubt it today. I'm not sure that Hamas is willing to reach to an agreement. Hamas feels that they are with the upper hand. I think that they have very good reason to believe so. They see the entire pressures campaign on Israel. They see that Israel is very confused. They see how the Israeli government behaves with regard to the humanitarian aid. All of this humanitarian aid that entered the Gaza Strip in the last days, and mainly since yesterday, was supposed to be delivered to the Gaza Strip following the agreement that Hamas was supposed to sign. So if they have it, if they can have it without negotiating and without releasing hostages, so why to negotiate and why to sign an agreement?
Yes, definitely a very important perspective from what's going on the ground in regards to the negotiation. We hope we'll get answers too soon. I want to thank our experts for joining us today to discuss these crucial topics. Former diplomat Shai Bazak and Professor Kobi Michael of the INSF and Misgav Institutes. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.